Formal education will make you a living. Self-education will make you a fortune. Jim Rohn. In 1717, William Frederick I, King of Prussia, set up the first compulsory schooling system. The main intention behind this model was to turn out extremely patriotic, loyal, obedient Prussian soldiers, and the schooling system was designed around that intent. They developed standardized testing, valued respect for authority over problem solving, and they conditioned the kids for boredom and monotony. They made them sit in classrooms facing one direction for long periods of time with very little breaks, had bells that signaled when it was time and you were allowed to move from one place to another, dark, boring prison-like hallways, the inability to play outside except for very specified hours. Everything was about uniformity. Uniformity in the grading system, just one student that sits in a desk and stands in line, even school uniforms, all designed to prep Prussian children for military service. In the early years of US and Canadian education, the focus was on creating great thinkers, innovators, inventors. It wasn't necessarily better because it was only for the rich who didn't need to work, but that was the focus. That all started to change around the time of the American Industrial Revolution. Around 1840, Horace Mann, known as the father of American schooling, went to Europe in search of what he believed would be the perfect schooling system and best fit the needs that he felt like America was facing. And on this trip, he had the opportunity to witness the Prussian schooling system firsthand. Upon returning, Horace started preaching this system far and wide as the perfect fit for what America needed. He quickly got strong buy-in and support from prominent figures such as John D. Rockefeller and many others. Soon, states from all across the nation started instituting compulsory schooling systems for the first time in our nation's history. In 1903, the General Education Board was established. This was a board designed to influence how the schools across the states were run and what was taught. Who was this board founded by? None other than John D. Rockefeller himself. And John D. Rockefeller Jr. was the primary board member. Other industrial giants such as Andrew Carnegie also played a significant role to influence the American education system. Rockefeller once said, "I don't want a nation of thinkers, I want a nation of workers." And Frederick T. Gates, a prominent member of the General Education Board, stated, "We shall not try to make these people or any of their children into philosophers or men of learning or men of science. We have not to raise up from among them authors, editors, poets, or men of letters. We shall not search for embryo great artists, painters, musicians, nor lawyers, doctors, preachers, politicians, statesmen, of whom we have an ample supply." This system, adopted from the Prussian schooling system, was not set up to train soldiers, but to train workers. Now, just to be clear, I'm not trying to get all conspiracy theory on you or saying that Rockefeller and Carnegie and these other guys had completely bad intentions. I don't necessarily know that that's true. I believe that we all have a little bit of self-interest, and it was probably the same in their case. In a way, they were some of the first great philanthropists, donating millions of dollars to education. And the truth is, at the time, there was a great need for workers, and there were many immigrants and many people that were coming to the US and needed work. They needed to make an income. They needed something to do. But in 1910, for the first time in American history, we had an entire nation of employees who only knew how to become workers for somebody else. People who were not entrepreneurs, they weren't business owners, they weren't merchants. They were essentially taught and trained to work for someone else. And then get this, in 1913, Congress passed the 16th Amendment, allowing them to take an income tax, right as we had an entire nation of employees. With corporations and government now in bed together, there was no way of stopping this factory we call the public schooling system. Okay, so once again, before we get all up in arms, let's play devil's advocate here a little bit. While I'm sure there was some self-interest involved from all parties, I'm a person who tends to give people the benefit of the doubt. And while no system is perfect, I mean, something did need to happen. We were in the industrial age, and it did create a lot of opportunity for a lot of people. And some of these people, while they had self-interest, they probably were doing what you and I would call creating a win-win. I'm going to contribute and donate to this. I have some say in it, but I'm also trying to help people be prepared for their future so they can have more opportunities, right? Fast forward about a century, in the year 2002, yours truly, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, heading off to college. I always knew I wanted to start a business. I knew I wanted to do my own thing and make good money, but I was also told you got to go to college. And I played football, so I was like, okay, got a scholarship, going to football, gonna meet some girls. Let's do this. But the entire time I'm there, I'm so confused. I never really loved school, but my whole life I'm kind of told it's okay. When you're an adult, that's when you're going to start learning how to make money. You got to go to college because college helps you be successful. But here I am in college thinking it's going to be this amazing experience. And sure, while playing football was a good experience and hanging out with friends was cool, the classroom setting was the same old thing. Just this time, instead of one teacher to 30, it was like one teacher to hundreds. Not one professor knew my name. Often the professor didn't even show up. They would just have someone who was a couple years older than me up there in front of the class teaching me stuff that I could have learned on my own, and stuff I wasn't even interested in. It had nothing to do with making money, had nothing to do with what I wanted to learn in life. It was either a repeat of what I had already learned or an extension of things that might be good to learn, I guess, but just not the main focus of what I needed that time in my life. It just did not make sense to me. And if it wasn't for football, I probably would have lasted about a week. Now, here we are just over 20 years after I dropped out of college. Still, not a whole lot has changed with our education system. Actually, it's gotten a lot worse. The cost of going to college has skyrocketed. And you would think that that cost would be going to teachers' pay to improve the students' educational experience, but it's not. But the reason why schools are able to continue to raise tuition without improving the education experience is because studies show that those who graduate college end up being in the top 20% of income earners, aka the workers who graduate college typically do get paid more than the workers who don't. But I want you to pick up on a couple things here. If you do not want to be a worker, if you do not want to be what the education system that we currently still have in the information age, and many say that we're actually past the information age, somehow that whole age was skipped when it came to figuring out what to do with our education system. But also, of course, if you're only accepting people that get really good grades, score high on tests, and have hundreds of thousands of dollars that they can shell out, of course, that's going to be the average highest income earners. Those same people would be in the top 20% even if they didn't go to college. But what perpetuates this problem is employers also paying these individuals more money for their piece of paper, which actually I can't say I totally blame them, because if someone is willing to go through that much schooling, that much doing stuff that other people tell them to do that they don't necessarily want to do, they probably will make good employees. But I would argue that even if you are trying to make good employees, there's a much better way to go about it that doesn't waste as much of their time, doesn't waste as many resources, gives them so many more options, but we won't go there. So here's the deal. The purpose of this course, of this lesson, is not just to complain and vent about our education system. I think it's important to be aware that our society, that your parents, their parents, we have indeed been brainwashed or taught to be workers, to be employees. We've been taught to go to school, to get good grades, to listen, to pay attention, just to do all the things you're supposed to do. Don't break the rules. Don't think outside of the box. Follow the status quo. Work hard in school so you can then work hard in school, so you can then work hard for someone else, doing what they want you to do and building their dream for the rest of your life. Oh, but follow your dream, but don't. And if you change your mind on what you want to do, oh, it might cost you a cool $100,000 if you chose the wrong thing. If you're lucky. I don't want to tell you how many doctors and lawyers I know that have hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt, and then they decided they didn't want to do that. Not to mention giving up 4 to 12 years of the prime of your life, the best time when you could be learning and taking risks and following your passion. And why in the world do we not teach people how to make money in school? This is mind-boggling. It's so crazy. Nothing about money, nothing about investing. In fact, there's been a study that shows that 2/3 of adults cannot pass a basic financial test, even the ones that have graduated college. Could you imagine if from a young age we talk to kids about what do you want to do? What do you want to learn? And we teach them skills and teach them things that will set them up for success. By the time they start middle school, I mean, I didn't want to say they're starting their own business because business is such a stuffy, boring word. But when I made money as a kid, I wasn't like starting my own business. I was just making money. I didn't have to be something. I didn't have to identify exactly what I wanted to do or be for the rest of my life. I just had to learn skills and then follow my passion. Go where the opportunity was, but also have fun doing it. Imagine if every kid by the time they're in high school has a little business going. I'm not talking about a huge corporation, but they're doing something that they're passionate about. And we all know that by doing, you learn 10 times more than when someone's just standing in front of a classroom and preaching at you and giving you busy work to do. Okay, so here's the thing. My goal is not to just rant and complain about our education system, even though I do want to change it. In fact, that's why several years ago when I was complaining, the thought came to me and like, someone needs to do something about this, and just hit me over the head. It's like, you do something about it. Like, shut the heck up and do something about it already if you want to. And that's all we can do. We can control what we can control, and don't over stress or over worry about that which we can't control. Otherwise, you'll be stressing out your whole life and then life will just suck. Remember the yeah butters? Don't be like those guys. It'd be so easy to think, oh, only if this, it's not fair because of that, blah, 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 blah. The best time to plant a tree was 10, 20 years ago, maybe 30 or 40, depending on some of our ages. The best next time is today. As I've been researching and thinking about our education system the last couple days, I gotta admit, it did get me a little fired up, as you might be able to tell. But then this morning, it hit me like a ton of bricks. I'm grateful that I've been trained to be a soldier. I'm grateful that I've been trained to do hard, monotonous, seemingly boring things. Because the truth is business, while you want to follow your passion, it's not all sunshine and unicorns. It is not easy. For being honest, I would say about 10% of the time you're doing something that you're really excited about. And the goal is to increase that percentage to a higher amount, but especially at the beginning, as you're launching that thing, as you're putting it up into orbit, it really is about being able and willing to put in the time, to put in the work, to grind it out, to learn. We don't live in a time of farming and agriculture. I mean, some people do, or of philosophy and literature. But I think we live in the best time ever. As you guys know, Tara and I have talked about a lot of the inner work that we have done over the past several years. And I recently have been reading this book called Think Like a Monk. My kids are always saying, oh, Dad's preaching from the monk book again. But through this inner work and personal development that I've been doing, that Tara and I have been doing, I'm continually reminded of loving what is, as Byron Katie says, and being grateful for any situation you have, turning anything that could be perceived as a negative into a positive. So as I got thinking about this, I started thinking how grateful I am that I've learned to do these hard things for a long period of time that sometimes may not make total sense. I'm also grateful that we live in a day and age where I don't just have to work in a factory, but I can literally within hours, or depending on what the skill is, days or weeks, learn an entire new skill that can literally change my life. Here's the thing, starting and growing a successful business is not hard. It's not. There are literally millions of ways to do it and millions of people that are telling you exactly what you need to do. It's incredible. We live in the best time and age ever for creating wealth, for living life on your terms. You just got to do a little bit of programming, because for decades, this is the way that society has been training us. And it's not your parents' fault. They don't know any better. That's how they were taught too. But it's time to break the chain. It's time for you to take accountability and responsibility for your own life, your own success. Don't blame your parents. Don't blame your friends. Don't blame society. Don't blame other people, because you know better. The only way things are going to change for our society and for our kids is if we choose to change them as individuals, one by one. But awareness is the first step, being aware that you have been trained to work for someone else. You have been trained to expect immediate gratification, whether it's a letter grade or a pat on the head or a piece of paper saying you're worth something, or a boss paying you a certain amount of money for every task you do or every hour you work. But if you can get out of the mindset of thinking this way, if you can delay your gratification for just a little longer, but also be accountable to yourself, be accountable to your mission, to your goals. If you're not spending at minimum 30 hours a week on marketing and selling your product and service, I don't want to hear about it. It's not that it's hard, you're just not doing it. I'll tell you what's hard. Working in a factory for 12 hours a day in poor conditions is hard. Not knowing where your next meal is going to come from is hard. Running a marathon is hard. But sitting in your comfy, cozy, air-conditioned house on your butt with your soft chair and moving your fingers on a keyboard, or lifting a phone to your ear and moving your mouth and words coming out, that is not hard. That's called freedom. That's called being willing to do what other people won't do for a short period of time, so you can do what you want for the rest of your life. Our society has taught us to conform, that taking risks is bad, that failure is bad. We literally, from the time we are young, get graded and evaluated on every single thing we do based on somebody else's standard for us, or what they think we should be doing in that thing. But this way of thinking, doing, being is so off. You see, when we take action, when we take risks, and I'm not talking about huge, insane financial risks, I'm talking about the risk of putting yourself out there, trying something new. There are typically hundreds of steps or to-dos within any big goal that we have, any business we're starting, any project we're working on. And most of those to-dos, most of those things are going to have hurdles, obstacles, struggles, trials. We're going to fail, aka they're not going to work out exactly how we planned. But that's not failing. That's learning. That's the best kind of learning. The only true failure, and this is probably breaking my monk rules, but to me, the only or the biggest failure is not taking that action, is not taking that risk, is not living the life that you want to live and doing the thing that you want to do and doing the things it's going to take to get there. That's the only failure. Taking action and learning, being in the ring, as they say, that is not failure. I tell you what, once again, let's take a page from the education system. Here we have this system that has convinced an entire society to do things that are boring and monotonous. And once again, just to be clear, I'm not saying that there's no value in a formal education in schooling. It just could be way better, but I digress. They have done such a good job at getting so many people to do so much for so many years, go to classes they may not be interested in, do assignments that they don't want to do and don't really get much of a reward from other than a letter grade or a pat on the back or told, good job. So you don't go to school for 12 or 13 or even the additional 4 to 8 years or 12 years that people go to college, graduate with a ton of debt, and then feel like, oh, I'm a big failure. Because the expectation is not that you're going to leave college rich. You know you're going to be broke. You know you're going to invest and spend 4 to 8 of the best years of your life there. And then the day that you go to get your piece of paper, all your friends and family show up, you throw a party, you're cheering, you're celebrating, you feel accomplished, you feel so good because that was the goal. You've got to look at your business the same way. Last week, Tara and I were struggling with the 100th thing that hadn't gone exactly right and was harder than we thought in preparation for launching the Build My Money Machine program. And we got talking, we had to take a taste of our own medicine. And we just started talking about all the things that we had learned in just that week alone. And it was insane. The amount of things we had learned were way more than you would learn in an entire year, if not 4 years of college. Once we shifted that focus from what were we accomplishing and the things that weren't going exactly how we had hoped and planned to the things that we were learning, not only intellectually or technically, but also patience, resilience, determination, setting an example for our kids. I have absolutely no doubt that if you were to give me a classroom of kids, not necessarily a classroom, but give me 30 kids that are all qualified to go to any given college, that are willing to put in the time and dedication that they would into going to school and maybe working a side job, without exception, every single one of those kids by the end of 4 years would be significantly better off financially, mentally, emotionally, physically. Studies show, and everybody knows, that the best way to learn is by doing. Why we don't do that in our education, especially in our college system, I don't know. But we can do it for ourselves. We'll dive more into this in upcoming modules, but essentially, what is it that you want to accomplish? Pick anything. It could be a big, huge goal. It could be a smaller project. When do you want to do it by? And start breaking down the steps that need to happen to make that happen. If you don't know what the steps are, that's the step you need to take, is figuring out what those steps are. As you take action, you'll get information. Then you keep learning. You keep taking more action. We're not in the 18th or early 19th century. Everything you need to know is right in front of you. Sometimes you might hear about what's called the immigrant edge. And when someone comes to this or another free country, a country with more opportunity, they just kick butt. They make it happen. And part of that is because sometimes we get used to what we have and we naturally start to take things for granted. Don't do that. People are constantly only ifing themselves. Imagine that you live in a different time, in a different era, and you could see forward and see the opportunity that is given to us in this time. Guaranteed you would be only if I lived in that time. Guess what? You do. And you can live whatever life you want. So write down that goal, break down what you need to do, and go make it happen. And when things don't go how you plan and take longer than you think, know that you're right on track, because that is going to happen. I promise you. Celebrate your failures. If you can hack your brain and be like, yeah, I learned something. What did I learn? Keep a notepad, write it down, write down the things you learned. Because the truth is, when you do make your piles and piles of money and you look back in time, I promise you, there will be a part of you that misses those moments. So once again, starting a business, taking action, doing stuff is not hard. You're sitting on your butt. The only difference is when things don't go perfectly right, instead of you just telling your boss, oh, this happened like this, or your boss having to figure all that out in the beginning and then just tell you what to do, you're the one who gets to learn. You're the one who gets to play the game. You make up the rules. It's so cool. I remember as a young boy, the first time I ever played Nintendo, Super Mario Brothers, it changed my life. I could play that thing for hours. But if you think about a video game or a board game or any game that we play, why do we play it? I mean, you're literally subjecting yourself to being killed by other little men and turtles and little brown fuzzy creatures. And we love it. We love the thrill. We love the rush. We are subjecting ourselves to constant failure, but we love the challenge of the game. Starting and growing your own business and creating wealth is the best game ever. We love playing games like Life and Monopoly, but playing the real game of life is the best game you can ever play, and it gives you real money, and you create the game. You make the rules. In fact, that's another tactic. If you think of your business as a game, but you also set it up in a way that you make sure that you're not going to lose money, and we'll talk about that more in future modules, it often shifts that mindset from, oh, scary, danger, to, oh, this is fun. I'm playing a game. I'm going to execute on this game. I'm learning. I'm growing. If I don't make money right up front, right away, that's okay, because it's a fun game. The reason why they say that we overestimate what we can do in a year and we underestimate what we can do in 5, because the first year you're learning a ton. You are creating the asset of you, which is far more valuable than any piece of real estate, amount of stock or investment that you could possibly have. The you of you will pay you returns like you never imagined possible, and not just financially, but in all the ways. Okay, now it's really time to land this plane. In summary, society has taught us to be workers. We have been taught to think linearly. They don't teach you how to make money. Your parents probably didn't teach you how to make money because they didn't know, because they weren't taught that either. Most people are not taught how to be an entrepreneur, but we live in the information age. We live past the information age. There is more information created in a day than was probably created in thousands of years before the internet began. For some reason, society has not caught up to our time. Some have, but a lot have not. But that doesn't mean that you have to be one of them. The new way to learn is by doing, by taking action on your goals and your dreams. I mean, you need to learn a new software or a program or hire someone, or how to maintain your composure and be patient. By patient, I don't mean sit back and not do anything. I just mean, we got this. By doing these things, by learning these things, you will learn more than you ever could have imagined by just learning things the old way. You will retain so much more. I remember next to nothing that I learned in college, maybe like 1/1000th, if that, probably a lot less, maybe 1/10,000th. But when you are learning with a purpose, you learn so much more. It's so much more impactful. And the ultimate, not immediate results are way, way better in every way possible.